Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today as part of our inaugural Tigunia virtual forum. We greatly appreciate everyone who has joined us for this presentation, and we hope the information shared is beneficial to you and your team after you leave here today. My name is Mark Mosman, and I'm one of the sales team members here at Tigunia, and I'll be your moderator for this presentation, which will run approximately 45 minutes with a 15-minute Q&A at the end, totaling 60 minutes. Please ask questions, as this is ultimately about providing you with as much information as possible. All questions can be asked in the Q&A box to the right, which we will review and answer at the end of the session if the topic was not already covered. So, without further delay, I give to you Francois Lemay, who is one of our solutions developers here at Tigunia. Francois?
Hello, everyone. My name is Francois. I'm from Canada, if you didn't know that. I've been working with Tigunia for a while, and I've been doing EDI for since 2006, I think. It's been a long time since I've done EDI. And today, they've asked me to show you what are the EDI basics. If you've heard of it, if you've never seen it, my job today is to let you know what EDI is all about and help you understand its basics. So let's just jump into the matter of it right now. What is EDI? It's short for Electronic Data Interchange. That sounds like wow, but really the technical description is the exchanging of standard business transactions through the use of standardized real-time bidirectional file transfers with as little human intervention possible. That's the long, boring technical description. In plain English, it's really file transfers that process business transactions or electronic processes to automate traditional paperwork. Really, it's a set of standards that are not necessarily used the same by everyone. So what does that all mean? Why do you want to use EDI? Well, EDI, large customers all demand it. If you want to work with Walmart, Amazon, they all require it, and a lot of big customers. It allows you to process higher volumes of orders. So imagine if you have 10 employees entering 100 orders per day manually in the system, or you have electronic transactions where you got 1,000 transactions that come in within like 10 minutes. That's one of the big attractions of EDI. It allows you to expand rapidly. There's less human error when you do electronic transactions because no one's manually typing stuff in. It attracts other customers. And when you say you're using EDI, it increases your visibility, saying, oh, they're using EDI, so they're ready to go and do business with us. So it's kind of a wheel in motion thing. As soon as you're in EDI world, you get more business, more customers, and all of that is why big customers and companies that want to go and see big start using EDI. To start with, there's a lot of terms and terminology in EDI that we need to address. So the EDI definitions here will show you a list of terms that are people that know and speak the language of EDI know what it's all about. First of all, when we talk about a trading partner, that's the entity you do business with, either your vendor or your customer or your warehousing partner or whoever. When you do electronic transactions, it's with a partner. Now, a VAN, that's a short for value added network. So a lot of companies that do EDI use a VAN. Think of it like the post office. So when you exchange electronic data, your VAN is a partner that allows you to transact between other partners. A translator, a translator is a program that facilitates the files in a specified format. So basically, we'll get to it a little bit later. The files, the EDI files, they come within a specific format, and you need to be able to translate from that format to your system and from your system to that format. So you need a translator to make that EDI transaction work. Think of the translator as the postman. He's the one bringing you the mail. An EDI document, that's a specific transaction that represents a specific business process. So you could have a sales order, a purchase order, an advanced ship notice, an invoice. All of those would be different documents. Think of it as a letter. Every time you do a different type of transaction, it's a different letter. An envelope, an EDI envelope. Within an EDI file, as we'll see later, there are special segments that identify the beginning and end of a specific file, so that we know when the translator, when looks at the EDI file, knows where to start and when to stop and has the complete information. Think of it as the header and the footer in the letter. Then there are EDI segments. Segments are like individual sentences within one document. And the elements, which are comprised of data within a segment, think of it as words within a sentence. So that sounds like a lot of post office, postman letter. Once we're going to look at an EDI file, you'll see what it all looks like, and you'll start getting it. Let's start with the VAN, the value added network. Normally a VAN, it's determined by the partner. So usually the bigger partner decides for the smaller one which VAN they want to use or not. So it's like the person responsible for distributing between the buyer and the seller the different files. And the VAN also serves as translator. So the buyer and the seller, all they have to do is send their files to the VAN. The VAN reads the files, translates them, distributes them to the proper people, proper companies and mailboxes. And that's one way of doing EDI between two partners. The second approach, you don't have to use a VAN. You can also do a direct connect. So some partners prefer to connect directly and eliminate the need to go through a third-party VAN. The most typical way of doing direct connections between partners is AS2 or FTP. But there are other methods as well, as I was told, but I usually do the mapping itself. We'll get to that. EDI documents. EDI documents, as I was saying a little bit earlier, each specific business transaction is represented by an EDI document. So a sales order is a document. An invoice is a different document number. And the EDI document's business implication also depends if the data is inbound or outbound. So let's say a document is a sales order for the customer, but for the vendor, it's a purchase order. So depending if the document goes one way or the other, it has a different meaning, even though it's the same document. So here are a few typical document numbers that are used in the industry that everyone that does EDI mainly does these. And there's like hundreds of EDI document numbers, but these are the most common ones. And I'll be able to show a demo a little bit later on of a few of these ones. So the 850 document number is an order. It's a purchase order. It could go in or it could go out. So if you're receiving a purchase order from your customer, you'll be creating a sales order in your system. If you want to send out a purchase order to your vendor, then you will send out an 850 for them. So the 850 is the same document, inbound or outbound, but depending on who generates it, the perspective is different. The 810 is the same principle. It's an invoice, in or out. Is it a sales invoice or is it a purchase invoice? The 856 also known as ASN, short for Advanced Ship Notice. That's for shipping information. So some partners like to have ahead of the truck arriving in their facility the specific information as to what's in the truck, what packages, what items are on which packages. So you can send the ASN to your partner. The partner can receive the ASN and know what's ahead of time so they can validate when they receive the materials that it matches with what you told them. Another common EDI document that is sent out is the 864, which is just a message. So you could just type in a full letter if you wanted to, multiple sentences, and just send it out in the 864 format message, and it's for someone to read. So if you don't want to go through email, you could still go through EDI and send a message. So what does a typical EDI file look like? There's different file formats. I'm going to show you today what the X12 format looks like. The X12, well, if anyone's ever seen an EDI file before, they wouldn't be able to read this. If you haven't, looks like Chinese. There's a lot of information there. You see there's a few words you can read, but how do you read this? There's a specific science. There's a specific way to read an X12 type file format. Let's go and look at that. First of all, if we break down that file I was just showing you, the first 3 lines and the last 3 lines, which match to the purple pyramid that we have here, are what we call the envelope information. The EDI files always start with in the X12 format, ISA as the first line and end with an IEA. These are the interchange ID information for the EDI. What's in the ISA line? There's a bunch of values that are standardized, but the most critical ones are the ones highlighted here. There's the sending partner ID and the receiving partner ID. So in the envelope, on the first line of an EDI file, it tells you who is sending it and who is supposed to receive it. These partner IDs are unique numbers. You need to register to get your own, and they're unique worldwide. And that's how vans, if you use a van, will know, oh, this is coming from here, it has to go there, and vice versa. It's very important that these envelope information be mapped correctly. You will find in the header the date, the time, the versions, and then sequential numbers and qualifiers, which are starting to get a little bit technical. The second level of indentation in the envelope, the GS, GE segment breakdown, these are for functional lines. You will see in this example, test retail and 7654321, they're the same information as on the ISA envelope, the sending partner ID and receiving partner ID. But they could be different because a partner could have multiple companies with multiple locations that they want to handle with different IDs. So you could have a different functional ID at the second level of the envelope than the first level to help dissociate or differentiate which company of the partner you're dealing with. Finally, the third level of the envelope, the STSE section, represents the actual document number that you're going to be processing. Remember on the previous slide, I was mentioning that the 850 was the order document number. So here we can see by ST850, we know that that's a transaction set for the 850. If I look at SE, which stops the envelope for that specific order, it says 48. I know, because I've been doing this for so long, that means there are 48 segments in between the ST and the SE, including the ST and the SE. And I'm showing you in this example that within the GE, you could have multiple ST and SE segments, documents within one EDI file, and you could have multiple GE combinations within one envelope from one partner. So it could get really, really messy when you look at the big EDI file. It could have like 10,000 characters and all that. But these special separators in the EDI envelope help read these files. If we go down to the next level, segments and elements. Here we can see that the first three lines, I didn't put the indent on this example. The first three lines, you have the ISA, the GS, and the ST. Now, everything underneath the ST and before the SE, the first element, the first thing you see is the segment ID. And the last character at the end of every segment has a segment terminator. So we know that the segment starts with BEG, means this is the beginning of a segment PEG, and it ends with this wavy character. That's a segment terminator. In between the elements, you have this star value. That's the element separator. So every time you have a separator, that means between two separators, there's an element, there's a value. And if you have two consecutive element separators, that means that there's a blank element. So if I try to read this file here, what I see here is the BEG segment starts with BEG 00, which must mean something. I know for a fact it means an order. SA, it's a type of order. I know by experience, and we'll see this later in the demonstration, the third element here, PUY 83209-1, that's the PO order number. So when you create a sales order in your system, if you're receiving this 850, the customer's order number is by 83209-1. This file, it's an old database and an old test file, was generated on 2014-09-11. So that's the order number. If we go down the file, there's lots of information, and every segment has a different start, has a different signification. So FOB, so that those are the FOB terms. CC means it's collect. FA, factory or warehouse, collect at the factory. I'm going to focus your attention on these two segments here, DTM 037001 with two different dates. DTM means date time. I'm not asking anyone to remember that, but notice that that segment is there twice. So how do I make the difference between these two? Well, the second element, the first element I should call, because the segment ID doesn't count. 037 is the first element. 037 means you can ship before. So 2014-09-11, that's a specific date that has the signification because of the qualifier 037. 001 means ship. So they're asking us to ship on September 25th here. And you can go down and there's a lot of other segments and elements that have a lot of other values here as well. Now, the trade partner. Each trade partner requires different information, formats, and mappings, and cross-references. So although the 850, which we were kind of looking real fast here, had a specific format, PEG, with the customer PO number being the third element of the first segment and all of that, certain partners will have certain requirements that say, well, I don't need that one. I need this element. I don't need that element. So even though the EDI file has the same format, each partner uses it the way they want to use it and use the information they need or want. Some partners will require, let's say, that you send the full address with the city, the state, the county, the zip code, and all of that. And other partners will just require you send them their address code, and they don't need to have all the rest. They know the rest. It all depends on the partner's requirement. So each partner will need, when you do EDI, will have to generate their own mapping guide. So this is how I want to use the 850. And these are the elements that are mandatory for me. These are optionals. You can send it to me. I don't really need them, but you can if you want to. So when you implement EDI between partners, you just need to be sure you have the correct mapping guides and you understand what is required. So you take the standard format and you map it the way your partner wants you to map it off of your own system. And cross-references. Well, there are obviously cross-references that need to be created between partners. There are multiple types of cross-references that you can put in there. At the basic level, you need to have cross-references between your customer or your vendor's addresses. So if you're in Business Central or Nav, you can have a customer and then have multiple ship-to addresses, the same with vendors. Well, you can set your customers' addresses as A, B, C, D. They may have it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in their system. So obviously, when you're doing EDI between you and your partner, if they're referencing from address A, you need to cross-reference it to 1 and 1 to A on their system. The same is true with items. There's many ways to put item cross-references. So I could have my own item number in the system, and I could log in my system, which my partner's item number is. Some partners also don't deal with their partner number or your partner number. There's what we call UPC numbers, Universal Product Codes, that you can register your product, and it's a unique number. Usually that's the one that's on the barcode of your label if you buy it off a shelf or somewhere. And some partners will just deal with sending out the UPC code in the cross-references. So depending on how your partner or you want to do EDI and transact with that, you need to have your cross-references, with your items. Units of measure. In your system, you could say everything is in eaches. Maybe in your partner's system, it's pieces. So they'll send you pieces. You have to cross-reference pieces to your unit of measure eaches so that it all ties in together. If you are exchanging statuses of orders, meaning the order is ready, it's back ordered, it's ready to ship, there's a price discrepancy, whatever, there could be multiple different types of statuses that you want to correlate with your partner. And there are a lot of other types of cross-references that you can name list that goes on and on. Your shipping agents. So you have FedEx as FedEx. They have it as FDX, UPS. You could have payment terms. They're sending you different payment terms on different orders. So their N30 for you is net 30. So you might need to be able to cross-reference your payment terms. You could also have different cross-references for reason codes for different types of transactions. The list goes on all the types of cross-references that you could have to set up for each of your partners for it to work. Now, all of this tied together makes up what an EDI file is and what the document you're generating with your partner is and how they're translated and how they're exchanged. And it's a lot of setup up front, but once it's working, it's just a push of a button. And everything goes through electronically, real safe. At this point in time, I was thinking I could show you a demonstration of a few EDI files that could be processed within NAV. I have an older version of NAV 2017, that will show you one of the third-party add-ons called LANAM. There are multiple third-party add-ons that can be used to do EDI with Business Central or NAV. LANAM is one of them. There's also TrueCommerce, BEC, SPS, and the list goes on. LANAM is a big one, and we have it so we can do a demo. So let me just jump to the demo. And sorry. Here is NAV. And let's start by showing you my first demo file. I've got these 3 file folders here. To the left, it's the common receive folder. So I'm going to be simulating receiving a few EDI files for sales orders. And when a file comes in the LANAM process, a raw files comes in the common receive folder. LANAM reads the file, finds for which partner it's for, and moves it and formats it to be readable by the system into an inbox folder where it's processed as a second step. So if I go into NAV, I'll go do it manually. Everything I'm going to be doing manually can be set up to be automated in NAV as well. So I'm showing the common receive file here, sales combo 1, which matches that folder I was showing you. From NAV, I can actually open that file. And it looks like what I was showing you in the presentation a few minutes ago. And this is a long one. Okay. So let's look at it before I process it. There's the ISA, GS, and ST to start the file. If I go down a little bit, I have an SE here and then an ST. So meaning this here is one file, one document within the file. And it's an 850 document because it starts with 850 here. If I go down here, 864. So this is an 864, it's a message. So I've got an order and a message all in one file. So if I come in here, and let's just look at it real quick again. You see the first line is the envelope. Now I'm going to process this file, the common receive. LANAM is going to translate that into a file that I will be able to process into NAV. So what happened here, I don't see it anymore. Let me go to the common receive. You see the common receive is empty, but in the inbox, I got two files now. Lanham was able to find that there were two documents in there, so it generated two files out of that initial file so that I can process them as two separate transactions. What's in those two files? If I go see the view inbox docs, which is a view of these folders, I see these two files. Let me open up the 850 file. You see the first line here, delimiters. That's what Lanham does. It adds this line here with the characters, the ASCII2 characters that are used as the separators and the segment delimiters. That's how the file, Lanham read the file, figured out how it was set up, and put this line here so that we can read the file. This means that you could receive a file where the star could be a pipe or any other special character. The wavy length, which is a segment delimiter, could be any other special character. Lanham will figure that out, put the correct ASCII characters in here to match those characters, and then when it's getting processed into Business Central or NAV, it won't matter. It will be able to read the file and be able to interpret everything. If I look at Test Basic 864, that's the message part. So it really split it in two. So let's process the 850 and see what happens. I'm just going to process this one here. Okay, let me go see what happened in NAV. I know it created a received document. Let's just filter in today. This is the file that was just processed. And I know it's this file because if I can still open the file from here, even though it's been archived, and I know it's there. And in this file, it said, remember the beg segment, the first segment? The customer order number is 49989. And the order date is 0909. Well, if we go to the right here, we see that it created an order number, sales order number 1075. And the external document number, which is the customer PO number, is that 499889. I can go to that sales order from here and see these are the items that were ordered. There are 4 different items with quantities 3, 1, 3, 2, with a discount percentage of 1% and 6% on these two lines, on these two specific lines. 3, 1, 3, 2. Okay, let's go see that EDI file again. Just to read the file. So the PO1 segment here, this is where we see the item information. So PO1 means item. 1 means the first line. Quantity of 3. The price 140.48. And SAC here, that's an allowance. There's a 1% rebate. So 3 is the first quantity in the first line. 1 is the quantity on the second line. 3 is the quantity on the third line. 2 is the quantity on the fourth line, with different items, of course. And the fourth line has 2 discounts, a 2% discount for a rebate and a 4% discount for volume, which is a total of 6%. So that's what we found on that order. 3132, 1%, 6%. So the order's in NAV. I didn't have to press any button. Didn't have to make any mistakes. The prices all came in here. As you can see here, it even is telling me there's a price discrepancy because the price we had natively set up in NAV didn't have the discount. So because there's a discount, or maybe it's different because even here there's no discount, it's different. So the system will tell you there's a price discrepancy. It's up to you to decide you reject the order or you accept it as is, you fix the price discrepancy or not before you process it. At this stage, I'm just going to ignore the price discrepancy and I'm going to ship this sales order out so I can invoice it and generate an invoice file out of NAV. So to do this, I need to release the order. I have to go through an eShip process called Fastback. Everything is now shipped. It added a freight of 1847. And now I'm going to post the invoice. And it's opening up the invoice for me. So the invoice number is 103045. Sorry. The total amount is 717.63. If I look at my outbox folder here, I have no EDI invoice yet. I can manually send the invoice from the posted invoice, or I can have a routine automatically send it. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to send the invoice here. If I go to my outbox now, you see there's an 810 now in the outbox folder. If I open up that 810 and look at it, well, BIG is the first element of an invoice. It's telling me the date it was invoiced, today's date. Well, that's not today's date. Well, it's today's date in this system. It's not up to date, sorry. But you see here, the invoice number, 103045, that came straight out of the invoice from NAV. And it's referencing the original order number. You've got the addresses, the payment terms, dates, and the item numbers are here. 3 of this item with this price and all of that. And then I've got the allowances for the rebate, 1% here, 2% on that one. There's the 4% store and special. Well, it did its thing. It even added the freight, that extra freight charge we added as a resource in NAV, 1847. It all adds up. So your partner is going to receive this EDI. And notice that the sending and the partner are now flipped. And the 850, the test basic was here, and 76554 to 1 was there. They're flipped because it's going in the other direction now. So that's how EDI does an 850 in and an 810 out in a simple scenario. We could do one more example of a EDI process. I've got this other file here, sales combo 2, that I could process. So if I go to view common receive here, oh, I forgot, there's that message file here. Let's process the message. You see there's a message here, and basically you can print the message. This is not the most elegant report to print. You can tweak it to make it more readable, but you could print the message, or you could just open the file and read the message. Here it says sender ID, following invoices have been rejected due to violations of blah, 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 blah. So that's an 864 message. It doesn't create anything. It's just there so you can read it. Let's go find that new common receive file, combo 2. What is in that file? This file is an 850. There's only one 850 here. But what's interesting is it has SDQ segments. Now, in EDI, SDQ means subsequent destination quantity. So you will have a partners, big partners that has lots of distribution centers. They will order 100 of an item, and then they'll say, I want you to send 50 to this distribution center, 25 to that distribution center, and 2 to that distribution center. So in EDI terminology, you just say SDQ, I'm ordering 92, and I want, how is it here? 12 and 81. That comes up to 92. And the quantities are 888. So it's telling you which destinations and which quantities to break it down. Let's just process it. It'll be easier to read once it's processed. So I'm going to process the common receive. It's going to go to the inbox. I'm going to process that single inbox. And you saw here, it created one receive. But now there's 2 orders. And those 2 orders, they have the same PO number. Let's look at them, see what's different on them. On this one, I have these quantities, 6, 12, 7, and 5. And the ship to is DC 200. And it's shipping for Dudley. And the other order it's shipping to the same distribution center, but it's shipping for Charleston. So basically, what we're having here is these 2 orders are going to a distribution center, but we want them pre-labeled and pre-split and on different packaging so that when it gets to the distribution center, they know to just ship them out to, these go to Dudley, these go to Charleston, and they're already labeled with that, for that. Now, transactions don't have to be, all have to be documents and stuff like that. They could also be help build the relationship as well. So one other interesting type of file we could have, I didn't talk about this one yet. Let's go to the common receive here. Let's look at this file. This is an 816. That's an organizational file, meaning, let's say you're with Walmart, and Walmart opens a lot of stores all the time. They could send you an 816 saying, we're opening up these 10 new stores. These are going to be the codes for these new stores. And you need to map these stores in your system, add these cross-references so that we can start doing EDI with you for those new stores. So this 816 will actually create customer cross-references. So let's go look at a little bit of the behind the scenes setups here. For this trade partner, there are customer cross-references here that says, this is the EDI code, this is the NAV code, this is the EDI ship to codes, this is the Navision Business Central ship to codes. If I process the 816, it's going to create a whole set of other codes, customers and ship to addresses automatically for this partner. So let's go and do that. And is it really test basic? Yes, it's test basic. I just want to be sure I was showing the right one. So go here, process common receive, go to the inbox, process the single inbox. If I go see my customer cross references now, Oh, bingo. All of these customer cross-references were created off of that file. So it doesn't have to be a sales or a shipping or an invoice document that's your transaction. You can actually use EDI to do any type of transaction informational so that you can automate anything as long as you and your partner agree on a set of standards and rules. Here it created these new sell-to codes because these are new customers based off the first one. And for each of those, it created a new EDI and Navision ship-to codes. These were created by the system, not just added as references. It did the whole thing in the background. So basically, that's EDI 101. And I've shown you the basic definitions and terminology, transaction types, and a few examples of transactions. At this point, if there are any questions, I'm open to answering those.
Yeah, we do have some questions, Francois. That was a great presentation, by the way. First question is, how do I know for sure that my EDI partner received my EDI file?
Okay. Okay, so basically in the system, in the EDI terminology, there's what we call a 997 file. It's called a functional acknowledgement. Now, a functional acknowledgement is an EDI file you send back when you receive a file. And within that 997, there are references to the envelope information of the file you just received. I can actually do a quick demo of that. And here, if I go to my partner and test basic, I think it was turned off. Just going to do a setup here, functional acknowledgement required. Okay, so if I go back in here and I put back a file in the common receive, and I process it now, view common receive, process it, yes, and I got my two files here again. I'm going to process. Let me just go see the outbox. There you go. The 997 is there. As soon as I process the first step, there's a 997. Let's open that up. 997 is telling me that I received these numbers of the envelope, which should match the file that actually was sent to me. If I go to the common receive archive, this should be the last one. Where are those numbers? Those numbers were assigned here somewhere. But basically, that's the answer. There's a 997. So if you receive a 997 that matches the file you sent, you know your partner received it. And vice versa. You send out a 997 automatically. And this is just a setup. As soon as someone sends a file, you send back your 997 so that it proves that you received it. Now, that doesn't mean you didn't have issues processing the order, but it's a confirmation you received it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. We have a couple more questions here. Is it complicated to implement EDI?
Well, it depends on what you want to do and with whom you want to do it, but it's not that difficult. The first thing you need to decide is if you're going to use a van or not. If the partner you're doing business with recommends or requires you do business with a specific van, well, basically the decision has been made for you. You need to then make sure your system is compatible to be able to process and generate files. If you're using Business Central, which we recommend, you can do that obviously, and there's a multitude of partners that can do that. You need someone that knows how to map this. So if you have an internal resource that knows EDI, it will be very useful. If not, we can help you with implementing that and in training you to have an internal resource to know how to do that and process those so you're self-sufficient. It all depends on how much control you want to have over the process or not. It's not that complicated. It's been around for a long, long time.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, and then we have, can EDI be used with a third-party warehouse, not only between a buyer and a seller?
Yes, of course, of course. So lots of companies have their own inventory handled by a third party. So when orders come in, they actually tell their warehouse, you need to ship these items out now and these quantities. And you need to electronically communicate that to your warehouse so that they know what to do. And then they can send you back a confirmation of what they did so you can update your system. Those transaction sets are 940s and 945s. So you can actually tell your warehouse as a 940 what you want to do, what to ship out. The 945 will be the confirmation that they shipped them out. Some partners also have their warehouse send the ASN for you. Sometimes they send it to you, so you have to send the ASN. It all depends on how you want to handle the transactions. If you have a third-party warehouse, normally they should have EDI already and be able to handle pretty much everything, anything. Makes it easier for them as well.
Okay. All right, great, thank you. It looks like we've got one so far. One more question, unless anybody else out there in our attendees would like to ask another one. So we have, is it easy to make changes if my trading partner changes the EDI requirements?
Oh yes, of course, it's very easy. First of all, your partner won't make changes and spring them up on you at the last minute. There's a standard in the industry. You got to give a heads up, and since when you're doing EDI and you may have hundreds of partners that depend on your map and you want to implement something, of course you're going to give a lot of heads up time and for everyone to adapt. If I look at the way LANM does its EDI, if you go into the background a little bit, and all the documents here, if I go into an 850 and my partner says, I want to change so that the date time reference, remember the DTM I showed you? There's conditions. And if it's 001, it means that it goes to the cancel after date, then 010. So if they want to change it or add a new qualifier, we could just change it here and map it to somewhere else, whether it's an inbound or an outbound. You have enough time to do that. And most EDI solutions will allow you to do that in an easy way. If you have a van that does your EDI for you, then your van does the translation, then it doesn't really matter. They'll do most of the translation on their own. It will be transparent for you, unless it's something you actually need in your system as well, in which case you might have to do an adjustment. But your van will work with you to handle that. If you don't take a van and you have the direct approach, that means you have an inbound in-house EDI resource and setup and translation, then you're qualified to do that as well. What takes long with EDI is the initial setup and testing. Once that's done and it's working, it's low maintenance, and whenever you need to do small changes, it's not that difficult.
All right, great. Okay, so it looks like we're about ready to wrap up here, Francois. If you could go ahead and put your contact information up there for me, that'd be great. So, so everyone, we really do appreciate you attending the session. And again, we do hope that the information provided here today was beneficial to you and your team. If you'd like to connect with our presenter or to learn more about all of Tigunia's services, please reach out to us at connect@tigunia.com. I'm going to go ahead and drop that in the QA here for you. And aside from that, we do have 3 more days of our forum going on, and we really hope that we see you at future sessions. So thank you for taking the time with us, and have a great day. Thank you, Francois.
Thank you.